Welcome to the Aegance Offscript Podcast, where we talk to industry leaders who share their stories, insights, and lessons, unfiltered and unscripted. I'm your host, Lawrence, and today I'm excited to welcome Cobus van Graan to the podcast, the CEO of Tracer Workflow, better known for their transport workflow software, INControl. Now, Cobus and his team have built a solution that helps fleet operators break free from the chaos of phone calls, WhatsApps, and paper, bringing scheduling, proof of delivery, invoicing, and compliance into one digital workflow. Cobus, great to have you on.
Lawrence, thank you very much. I'm excited to be here and I look forward to our discussion. Thanks.
Amazing. Well, if you don't mind, for the sake of the listeners and the viewers, just providing us with a little bit more context around Tracer Workflow, what it is that you guys are doing, and what are your areas of operations?
Lawrence, our aim and our vision is to help companies to gain profitability faster and more efficient. And that's what our business is all about. We've learned in the years that I've been obviously in business, that business is about systems, work, and workflows. And if you can digitize it, you're actually putting your processes on steroids. And that's what we would like to offer to companies, is exactly that, to help them to understand. Lots of times they already understand that it is about processes and workflows, but to digitize it, because if you don't, it's so much easier to manage it, control it, and improve it over time if it's digitized. It doesn't depend then on who pitched us up this morning on how your processes are going to run for the day. The system controls that. And that's our vision, and that's what we'd like to help companies with and really help them go forward much faster.
And when you think about the next 5 years, what kind of a company do you want to see Tracer Workflow become? And what change do you hope that it creates across the logistics space?
I think we'd like to, delve even deeper. If we talk about transport specifically now, delve even deeper into that and really get our teeth into RTMS, which is the Road Transport Management System itself, which it's like ISO, but for transporters, and really get deeper into that environment. Because it's not just about the shipment process, it's about the workshop, it's about the people specifically, their safety, their training, even managing their leave and all those type of aspects. So that's where we'd like to go, and we're starting to get our teeth into it. We've got our first customers on RTMS, a full RTMS solution, and we're talking to more and more that would really like to start to digitize their RTMS processes. From a company perspective, it's important for us in the next 5 years to really make sure that each of my teams have a clarity of exactly what they need to do and do it as efficiently as possible, with speed, and focus on customer service right through it. It's important our whole business process or our whole business model has been put together in such a way that we have to keep involved with the customer. We have to work with them to make sure they get the value. And my vision there for my team is to know how to do that, linking it through our digitized workflows, because we digitize our own processes as well, to grow in the same manner that we suggest our customers grow.
And how do you get your team to buy into that bigger picture?
Well, I think my team's already bought into it. I'm very lucky. We've got it's probably one of the best teams I've had in many, many years currently, and it's exciting to work with them. And I don't let it, any chance go by without me telling them that, because I really appreciate what my team is doing. But from a customer perspective, to be able to scale, or to adapt, change is always the one thing that people are scared of. Customers are scared of that. What if we digitize? Aren't my people, are they going to be able to adapt, and all those type of things? I think from our side, we really learned a lot of lessons over the past 15, 20 years on mobility and how mobile users and internal users would use a system. And that's why we even customized their processes into workflows with their naming conventions, even to the field level, using their terminology. we regularly take their job cards or, their current paperwork, take that terminology, and we put it into INControl, so that when the user starts to use it, it's already an environment they recognize and say, oh yes, that's what we've been doing always, it's just now electronic. And that's what we'd like to achieve there, and make it as simple as possible. With that, the backup comes through from a training perspective. Obviously good training, normally not a lot of hours, because it's their process, it's their terminology, they understand it much so easy. But the follow-up is important. When they wonder what's the next step, they've got to be able to half an hour, get an answer, and know what the next button is to press. So that support is very important for us. And then also, we have a plan in 60 days. We've got to show a return on investment to the customer. We go back with their stats and say, look at what happened to your business within 60 days. What happened to ROI? What happened to your checklists? And normally checklists are around tracks and so on. And what's the effect on the quality of the maintenance and the quality of your trucks going out onto the road, that they are going out with less defects and all those type of things. So it's really it's the partnership with a client to get past that change fear. But we've even had customers that said, you know what, we can't do this. My truck drivers will never be able to work on an app. And that's been disproved how many times now already? I mean, that's a couple of years ago when we initially had those type of people, worrying about it. And what we saw is that truck drivers are all on smartphones for many years already. And the moment we say this is an app, that's the icon, and you click on it and you do that, and say, okay, that's like a normal app. Show me what's the 3, 4, 5 steps. Where's my documents? And then they go. The change in there is actually much less than what everybody thinks it is or thought what it was. So it's quite exciting to be in this environment where people are actually getting to more used to technology very quickly.
And tell me, Cobus, what's been the hardest part about keeping your long-term vision alive whilst trying to manage the chaos of day-to-day operations? I find that it's often very easy to get caught up in what's right in front of you, and that long-term vision sort of becomes quite distant and quite hazy.
I'll tell you, Lawrence, that's the one question that kept me awake for many, many years. Well, it was the whole thing that INControl is so configurable. It's a very, very unique system in the sense that we can configure workflows to the last T, basically, for each customer. The problem with that was we didn't know from a marketing point of view how to sell it. So what we tend to do was to try and say, we can digitize any process. We had no focus in there, and that's the problem that we had. People didn't understand really what we do, but we were not focused enough on what we sold, and then they were unsure of what are you actually offering me. And at that stage, because I had to learn many lessons in my careers in this business as well. I mean, about 10 years ago, I was first line support as managing director of the business. So, I had to learn and say, hey, you've got to get out of there. And it was great to have help and consultants that we engaged with and helped us through that process. What we found, and that made a massive difference to our business, is that we have to focus on a specific industry, that we have to focus on a specific element of what we are selling. And what we identified by focusing on what are we really good with in which industry is that we could actually start to suggest workflows and processes to companies that's already configured, that's easy to copy and paste, and we could start to standardize and simplify implementations. Even our pricing structures could start to standardize. Our training manuals are now standardized. So the moment we started to focus, that had the effect that we could start, implement much faster and so on. But the effect on the customer was they started to understand what we're doing. They said, okay, so you do the shipment process. That's where I need help. And then we get involved in the shipment process, and then we start to get into other processes of that business and start to digitize more and more of their workflows. So the big learning for me, if I summarize it, was not to be trying to be everything for everybody. Focus on what you are the best at. Make that as efficient as possible, and then the client will also understand what you're doing. And that's a big learning point we had.
Yeah, and that's some really sound advice as well. Okay, so that led you to build INControl, which seems to be sitting at the intersection of tech, hardware, and logistics. Tell me a little bit about how you currently decide where to focus your innovation energy. Are you focusing on product depth and improvements? Are you focusing on market reach and broadening your footprint? Or are you focusing on partnerships? What's important to you?
Well, the thing is, in a way, they work together. I think from you mentioning partnerships there, I think there's two things. With regards to the product itself, the depth of the system and how it needs to be improved, we're always looking at how do we make it more user-friendly? How do we take out clicks? How do we add little features in that'll add more value to the customers? And that's always there. But one of the big things that happened in the past 12 months is that I sat with a customer and he said, yes, we really like to put INControl into our business. We want to get all our truck drivers on tracks and all and really start to use the apps and everything. And then he said, and can you help us with hardware? Can you help us with finding the right tablets to put into those tracks? Can you help me to find the right or SIM cards? Because how do we manage the data? And that's when I realized it's plus minus 12 months ago. Then I realized, but we're not solving the whole problem of this customer. In general, all our customers, we've got the software, and then we say all the best with your hardware problems. That's not our problem. And we decided to really engage with that, really start to research the market. We got a very good rugged tablets that really works well in tracks and other environments at a very good price. And I think that's something that changed in the market. It was very expensive at some stage to get rugged tablets, and it's not anymore. It's very cost effective right now. Then we did our research in SIM card management, and we got a partner in there to work with from a SIM control point of view. And the one thing that was still outstanding, and we added to our line of value-added services, was MDM, mobile device management. Because what we realized is, yes, you can have a tablet, you can have data on that tablet, your apps on it, and they're out there. But if that tablet gives a problem to that driver, it could be a simple thing like he forgot his password, simple thing like that. And suddenly he can't do his work, but he's in Zambia or wherever. We added MDM where we can control what's happening on that tablet. We can log into that tablet, sort out everything, clean it up, or log him in, whatever we need to do, which we do regularly right now. And also the problem that the customer said, but what if they're going to use it to go on YouTube and use up all our data and all those type of things? And MDM's got that solution as well built in with a kiosk where you lock it down and they can only do what they need to do. And we can actually monitor the data usage and which apps are using the data. So by adding those lines as services, we started to really solve the whole problem the customers got. Not just saying, here's the software, but it goes to hardware, to SIM control, it goes to MDM and everything. And now we've got all those options in. And what's amazing is in my financials, we've got no separate lines for those new lines of income, and it's growing month on month. And that's exciting to see, but it's all about solving the customer's problem. And that's what happened there.
So if I just understand the MDM model, and if we run with the example that you use, the driver forgets his password, would he need to get hold of his head officers, who would then in turn get hold of you? Would the head office have access to the MDM and be able to let him in? What would that sort of flow look like?
Well, our business model is, with regards to MDM, is that we manage it on behalf of the customer. So we do checks every morning. We go through the different tablets, see if they're online, everything is fine, and that's fine. If they find a problem, their management will let us know through a very quick WhatsApp channel. We go into the tablet, solve it, and give them feedback. Most of the time, 99% of the time, it's resolved. So that is the process that we have with our customers here.
Yeah. And I just want to comment that something that I love about business is that you come up with an idea and you go to market with the idea and you prove the concept and then you're like, geez, this is going really well. But then through that business and through that idea, it starts to open your eyes to the full potential of the additional bolt-ons that come with the idea. As you say, you never really thought of sourcing tablets. You never really thought of the device management, and you've just you roll with the punches and you're agile enough to say, yes, we can do that. Even when you know back at the office you can't, you always say yes, and you figure out the the deliverability of it later. I absolutely love that facet of business.
Yeah, you've got to make plans on the one side. You've got to, and if you say, I believe in it, that's how it's one of my core beliefs. If you say you're going to do something, you have to do it. And so, yes, if I say it, we take it really, really seriously. The other partnership was also important for us was finance of those tablets. And we got a partnership in there as well, which is fantastic that, over years you build up relationships with people in different companies and industries, and that helped as well. So now we finance the hardware as well. But you're totally right. If you see a problem with a customer that they have, and it's within your realm, because I don't suggest you go outside of what your focus environment is, but I've just felt it is so much part of our environment. If our software is mobile, you've got to solve the mobile part as well. So yes, we could do what we promised, and that is good.
And as INControl's client base has grown, what have been some of the biggest operational or technical bottlenecks in that growth process?
Well, actually, something interesting happened in our business, in the sense that we've been focused on transport, and it's been going well. But we picked up the past year, I would say since around about January, February, that the market is under pressure. The research we've done, the people we talk to, it's under pressure. And there's many reasons. I don't necessarily want to go into all the reasons, but, rail is coming in. There's many one-band track companies with one track, and they can squeeze the margins very low. All those type of things that's happening. So we started to look at and say, okay, what's the core of our system? And the core is getting information in the truck environment or the transport environment, getting the job, getting it, putting it into the system, getting it out to the truck driver so that he can know where to go, take photos, do his checklist, sign it off whatever he'd like to do, get the weights of the truck on the weigh bridges and so on. And when he's finished, it's back in the office so that you can invoice again. And so that circle of making money come in faster has an effect on profitability and cash flow. And we identified that as the core of INControl from a transport perspective. But because transport is under pressure, we started to look around and say, how do we use the same concept or the same focus of INControl, but in other industries? And around about 3 to 4 months ago, the idea came up, and it's been implemented now for 2 months. And that's to pivot and also start to go into the field services market. Now, field services, to give you a few examples, it would be plumbers, electricians, HVAC, solar implementations, people that sends out technical people to go and repair something or install something or whatever. And if you look at, we call that now the tasking process. It's getting a job, getting it out to the technician with all the right information. He can take photos, get it signed off, the whole thing, and it comes back to the office. Now, same thing, profitability can go up, cash flow can go up because you can invoice much faster. And where that idea came from was me identify, or, in my personal capacity, using a plumber And then normally 3, 4, 5 weeks later, having to phone them and say, where's my invoice? And them either saying, oh, thanks for reminding us, or we are so far behind in our invoicing process, you will get it. and we realized, but you know what? That's no change in what we do. It's exactly the core of INControl, but let's pivot and start to use it in a different industry as well. And I'll tell you, it's been a massive success. Where we felt that the transport market was under pressure, it's the opposite on the field services environment. When we started the process and we changed our marketing and how to find those clients from a marketing perspective, we immediately started to get up to 2 leads a day. I mean, that's a very different environment for us. And sometimes you have to think about your business. See, how do you use your same process or your same solution in another industry? And luckily, we've been able to do it. And now we're actually starting to look at number 3 and number 4. We're looking for them, and I think they are on the horizon. But nothing changed from our product point of view. Nothing changed from an implementation point of view. No process has changed internally. So it's easy to pivot and just get that business as well. So yes, that happens. Luckily we found the new market that we could pivot towards.
Yeah, that's amazing, and it's always great to hear about these pivots that are successful. Oftentimes they're not so well done, and super exciting that you got an additional 2 pivots, you said, on the horizon. So we'll sort of keep an eye on that.
Correct.
Just in terms of clients when they come on board, so I'm assuming they expect some sort of a seamless integration. Does that create any sort of friction points? Because no onboarding is ever fully seamless. Do you experience any pushback along those lines?
Lawrence, that's an area we've put a lot of effort into. And I actually have an employee in the business, a manager, our business analyst, that is very focused on systemization of everything. And because we've put a lot of effort into making sure that when a client lands, our internal process is already starting before we even have the first meeting with them. And there's a specific process, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And so that when we get to the implementation date, everything was smooth. Most of the time, they never wait for us. We wait for them because we wait for their data or everything. But because our process is slick, everything just starts to fall in place quite quickly. Then the implementation happens. I think the one hiccup that we are always looking at to try and get better is the users, some users. Normally your internal people in the office doesn't have a problem with INControl to get going. And if you look at your mobile users, I would say probably 70% of them would be fine. And then you get your few that struggles a little bit. And it's not as if there's something wrong with it, the app or anything like that. Lots of times they're just not interested. And that's a discipline thing. And that's the one area where we have to think a little bit more. How do we help those guys to get up and running much faster? We even had videos at some stage, training videos in there, customized and all those type of things. It didn't have the effect we wanted to. The manual still works the best, which is customized for their environment. But I would say that's one of the hiccups we're still looking at. How do we get that, let's say 10, 15% of users that's a little bit slower than the rest, where just the discipline is not good enough? How do we help our customers to help those few individuals as well? And I would say that's something we're still working on.
Yeah, I'd imagine that falls within the broader change management field, and maybe that's another service offering that you can add to your holster, providing full service management and making sure that everyone buys into the reasonably large change that's occurring, so that from a management perspective, uptake is closer to 100%.
That's right. We're actually thinking of employing somebody, early next year, that if somebody struggles in the field, that we actually send him for a day with that person, and he goes and works with them alongside him just to do the digital side, or help him with the digital side. Because if somebody helped somebody and coached them for one day, and everything is working fine and he's been able to do it right, he'll gain the confidence that they need.
Yeah,
So that's what
absolutely.
we're thinking of.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So, Cobus, in my experience, and certainly with some of the conversations that I've had recently, for many SaaS business and operators, client acquisition is still very much relationship driven. What's been your most effective growth channel so far?
Growth channel. You know what? I believe that sales is a process. It's about understanding who do you want to target, and making sure my salespeople and marketing and sales know exactly also who are those clients we want to target. It's just not just everybody. How are we going to target, and make sure everybody through the process knows exactly what we're targeting. I actually wrote a book called The Invisible Customer about that sales process and how to get that right. So I'm trying to implement it into my own business consistently. On the other side, you have to get involved in the industry. So that's why we tend to get involved with forums, industry forums, with the expos, with leaders, individuals that's involved in the business, and you have to be seen out there to build that brand that you know what you're talking about, that you are seeing where your customers are being seen, and then implementing the process from a sales perspective. I think that is important to have the whole process in place.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say has been a big challenge in making your growth more predictable? That I can appreciate, and I certainly agree with you that sales is a process, and often it's a bit of a numbers game. If you aren't putting lots in the top of the funnel, you're going to get very little coming out the bottom, and your sales team are going to struggle to close. So, have there been any challenges in terms of making sure that lots is going into the top of the funnel so that there's more to play with when the end of the quarter comes around?
I wouldn't say so. It is always, especially now that we're pivoting towards field services, it's a new market. We found new ways of targeting that environment, which is very different to transport. But as I mentioned, you've got to look at your industry forums and so on and get involved there. That's where you start to pick up your leads. You've got to have your mass marketing campaigns, either through email or through LinkedIn or Facebook, depending on where the customers are. And it's in these two different industries, they are actually in two different places where you can find them and where you get your leads. But it's a consistent thing. You've got to have a process of finding leads, whether it's marketing or sales. You've got to have that in place. I think from a pipeline perspective, we're actually doing quite well there. From a transport point of view, the problem was to close them more than anything else. We had enough in the pipeline, but the margins, they were just too scared about. We're always talking about the future, the next few months, the next 12 months. They don't know what's coming with rail coming in and so on. So that had an effect on us. On the field services market area, it's very different. We get a much higher closing ratio. It's because there's not so much pressure from a financial perspective and margins perspective there. So we don't have a problem so much in getting the leads in. It's just that we have to consistently look at, are we in the right place? Are we doing the right things? And we actually went through a process for a couple of years of moving our budget around from here to there. I'm not going to mention because, sometimes people, let me not go there. But it's about finding where's the market that really works, because for some companies it works in a certain environment, but for us it didn't. So we've got to move our budget around until we find it. And that's what we've been doing. And it seems that we've got a rhythm now, and that's good. But it takes time.
Yeah, makes absolute sense. And of course, don't want you to give away any trade secrets on the podcast. You hold on close to what works for you guys. So Cobus, let's say once a client is onboarded, are you tracking their client health? I mean, or their sort of product adoption?
Yes, absolutely. We've got standard reports that every client is part of their setup, is to see how many documents are created. We call a document is something that goes through a workflow, just to give context. How many documents are created, how many has been staged, how many has been completed, and so on. We've built in a certain level of gamification so that people are compared to their peers. Who's creating the most documents, who's doing the most stages, who's creating the most tables in the system, and comparing them to each other. And then you start to create competition. So the moment you log in, it tells you are number 1 in the company or number 3 in the company. And then you can go and look at who's above me, so I can beat the next guy, and so on. We'd like to actually take that whole concept further. And we are already starting to make plans, and how can we build in more gamification aspects into the software to help people to engage more, but also create a little bit of competition in there. So, sorry, what was your question again?
No, my question was more around how you are tracking client health and product adoption.
Yes.
And I suppose as a follow-on to that as well, maybe to give a bit more context, how important are things like data visibility, measurable ROIs in terms of retaining clients?
Yes, absolutely. That's where I wanted to, or why I actually started. They have those to see how well the system's been used. We give them feedback as well to management, depending on the client, because each one is slightly different and how they'd like to get the information about how much did they change in their business. Did it bring into their business? Like, for instance, one of the customers, because they on paper, they didn't really get enough of the problems on their trucks to the workshop. And I mean, there were problems in there, like, for instance, my handbrake doesn't work. I mean, that's critical. Now it doesn't even get to the workshop. It's on a paper filled in thousands of kilometers, or, well, probably not thousands, but let's say 1,000 kilometers from the office. And it will take that truck to come back before management realizes there's a problem. By doing it electronically, they get it immediately. And we actually give feedback to the customer, said, this week, you've identified 200, in one case, 400 new defects on your trucks this week, live. Now they can prioritize. Now you don't bring them in for, say, for instance, one light that's not working, but you bring in the ones where the brakes are not working well enough, and they can prioritize and solve those problems much quicker. We show them that results. But I think that the next thing is around reporting, because in reporting we actually have 3 levels, which again makes us quite unique in how we approach it, because we realize, but that's how the customers actually think and what's necessary for them. The first one is your normal, it's a type of reports like prints, making things that you have to read it. So instead of putting stuff into the system, and then having later to put it into a quote, we automate it. You print your quote straight out of the system. You print your pro forma invoice straight out of the system. So we make a checklist reports or certification reports, just automated. That's the first level. Making things that could take an hour to an hour and a half to do, make it instant. That's the first level. The second level of data management, because of using the data that's in the system, is your mass data reports that gets exported into Excel in the format they like, in the sequence they like, where they can now really start to play around. Now, it could be as simple as mass reports on, which of my drivers are not filling in. That's more important question, are not filling in their checklist before 8 in the morning. Or, for instance, where's my my revenue? What's my revenue up to today, and where's that revenue coming from? And so it's mass data that you can manipulate and play around with to get good information. And then the third level is your dashboard reports. Now, dashboard reports typically can be on a screen, but normally they put it on big screen TVs in the operational room, and that's where your KPIs sit. Like, for instance, where's my how many jobs are there today, how many are on time, how many are late, and it goes red the moment it's late, goes green the moment it's signed off, and you can use the truck again for a second job or a third job, things like that. But also reports like your main KPIs. How many fatalities did we have this month? How many checklists have been filled in? How many leave days were taken this month? Or how many more jobs could we do because we can do things faster? It's the main KPIs. That's your management level normally where that comes in. And it flashes and it updates as things change in the system. And managers can see it and live make decisions and improve their systems or change something in the business. And that feedback is massive for businesses to go forward. Obviously, you need management that's really involved, and not in the operations. They, from a management perspective, but also you have to have your strategic managers that look at those type of numbers and say, how do I improve my business every day with 1%? We've actually implemented the 1% principle in our business with all our people, always in all our management meetings, we have to think about how do we improve our business with 1% today? And in every management meeting, it gets discussed. And you know what? Those small changes add up to the end, and it makes a big difference. But we want to give our customers the same opportunity to be able to make those decisions and improve their businesses.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Certainly the picture that you've just painted is a very strong case to make the shift from manual, paper to digital workflows. Why are prospects saying no? Is it a cultural issue? Is it a technical issue? Is it an adversity to change issue? I mean, you paint such a vivid picture of how companies are able, through your services and your technology, make their company firstly more efficient so that they can deliver more and impact their revenue at the end of the day, but also keep everyone on track in terms of progression towards the KPIs, etc. Why are people not coming on board?
You know what, Lawrence, I always say to my salespeople, you have to have three things in place before you make a sale. The customer's got to have the money, they have to have the need, and it's got to be the right time. It's three things. And what I think is happening with customers sometimes is that, yes, the argument is overwhelming. It makes a lot of sense. But they might not have the money right now, not right now. So that can happen. It's not often that we get that they don't have the need. Most of the times they say, you know what, you're right, we have that need, but we don't have the money. But we must never underestimate the timing. Sometimes then it's just not the right time. Now it could be there's big change coming in their business anyway. They're putting in a new accounting system, so we can't add in something else now in as well. But it could also be, and I'll be honest with you, that's where I was many years ago as a business owner. My mindset wasn't in the right place. I thought I'll be able to do it with paper, Excel, and phone calls and stuff. It'll be fine. But, I don't need it. But it's just because my mindset in my business was not at the right place at the right time at that stage. Fast forward 4, 5, 6 years later, and I realized I can't do without this. Why didn't I do it much earlier? And how it changed my business since I've done it. But sometimes you can do whatever you want to do. If the entrepreneur or the business owner is not in the right space at that stage, they're just not in the right space. We've got a strategy. We call it long-term strategy. The moment we identify they have the need, we always know they can make a plan with money, but it's not the right time. We put them into a specific stage into our system, which is called long-term, and they get a slow trickle of contact with us. Every 2 to 3 months, they get a contact with us because we say, you know what, the moment that business owner gets to the right mindset and stage in his business, we've got to be there. Otherwise, the opposition will be there by chance and get the business. We're going to be there. One day he's going to be at the right place, and then we'll get the business. And it seems to be working. I mean, I discussed with my sales manager this morning, 2 clients No, actually 3 clients that said a year, 2 years ago, they're not going to do business with us, that came back and said, yes, now it's the right time to do business. So you've got to have a long-term, plan as well from a sales perspective.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That long-term play is certainly, in my experience, has paid off for me. Not just driving for the immediate sale, but understanding that there are many factors outside of your control as a salesperson. And you've rightly mentioned, a number of them: access to budget cycles, etc. And leaving a prospect behind you when they've said no right now is often quite a foolish approach to sales.
Yeah. So, I think that's the closest I can get to an answer on your question.
It's a good answer. So transport and logistics companies, they talk a lot about visibility, and now I'm talking about the market from a sort of macro perspective. In practice, where do you think there are still some blind spots or data gaps in the broader market?
From a transport perspective, I think the data gaps is mainly, look, they are very good. The transport business is very good to know where their trucks are and what's happening on the track. Where the gap is what's happening operationally that needs to contact, that the truck has to go and deliver on, what's happening in the business. And that's where RTMS in the transport industry plays such a pivotal role, is starting to put processes or suggest processes that measures what are all the other elements that should be in place to make your business effective, safe, and more profitable, and safe towards your people, because your business is people and you've got to look after them as well. And there's a lot of gaps. People tend to focus on the track and tasking the track and coming back, and we play a role there as well. But there are other things as well of, are the people trained up well enough? Are they healthy? Add to your checklists. How do you feel today? Knowing this driver's got diabetes, this driver's got that problem. Are they managed well enough? And then also, obviously, your workshops. Are my maintenance schedules up to date? Do I know it beforehand, or do I know it when the truck comes back in? All those type of things that's outside of specifically the track, like leave and all sorts of aspects in there that RTMS is all about, that I think is a massive gap. You know what? RTMS has been promoted for many, many years by the transport industry. And I think it's close to 5-6% of transport companies currently are RTMS certified. We don't know of one that's digitized their certification processes yet. And then it becomes a box tick process. We have to tick all these boxes so that we can get our next certification. But you have to make it a way of life in your business to make that RTMS processes really work and see the benefit. And with software that manages all those processes, never forgets anything, I really think it's going to make a massive difference. And that's a big gap in the transport industry right now. We're starting to implement the first companies. We've got 3 right now. That's either slowly implementing it. We've got 1 full implementation of companies starting to buy and say, you know what, if we digitize this, RTMS compliance will actually become easier, but it'll have a big effect on my business profitability.
Yeah, that's super exciting. Well, Cobus, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. It's been a fascinating conversation to dive into the industry at large, but then also to look at INControl in a little bit more detail and the impact that's having on the market. So thank you so much for your time.
Right, Lawrence, thank you very much. It's been great to talk to you.
That's it for today's episode of the Aegance Offscript Podcast. If this conversation sparks something within you, a thought, a question, or a new way of seeing your own business, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below. We'll catch you on the next one. Cheers, everyone.